Her Show, which we're dedicated to helping women live financially free lives and do it in a balanced way. So
whatever that might look like for you.
We're going to get into our story in a moment as we jump in to kind of give our background as we talk about this topic, but that'll be perfect to start with.
Awesome.
Excited to be here. Andressa.
Well, so you wanna just jump in with the slides, Liz?
Sure. Dan, I'm sorry. Are we like jumping in now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were taking back the game plan here. Sorry.
No, sorry about that. Might have been a little too clear. So I'm going to have you guys. Do you guys have a PowerPoint? I think you guys are going through?
Yes. Yep. I'm just
whoever has that PowerPoint, just find that little green share button at the bottom there, and it should be able to have you share your screen.
Just bear with me here. Sorry about that. I'm a little slow on the uptake here, you know?
it's an early
Saturday morning.
You gotta have your coffee ready for you.
I know. I'm only one in. Okay.
Good to go.
So I shared it on my screen. Okay, there you go. Share. Okay. We good?
You are good.
Okay, awesome. All right. Awesome. So thank you for everyone being here. Justin and I are really excited to talk about this topic when it comes to investing, multifamilies, but also team, right? You can't do it all yourself. So start with a quote. No matter how brilliant your mind or strategy, if you're playing a solo game, you'll always lose out to a team. So there's a lot of truth in that. And we're going to get into the nitty gritty on this and just kind of share our experiences with you and hopefully take some nuggets and apply these things to your own investing business and build that Rockstar team. So a little bit about me. I'm not going to go to too much depth here because I could probably talk an hour here on myself, which no one wants to hear at all. People want to hear the value, the nuggets, so we all can take it back to our businesses. So real quick, from New Jersey originally, went to Rowan, got my degree in social work. And then read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like many of us, and it just changed my life, and like many of us about 14 years ago, played the cash flow game as well, which he has created in helping you experience real estate. We bought our first duplex, our first multi, back in 2004. Okay, so I've been in this for a while. Lots of bruises and war stories, but a lot of good things too. And it was a duplex we bought off market. And that was kind of started our path to multifamily investing and getting involved in real estate investing. My husband and I started the DeRosa Group in 2005, and we're based in Trenton, New Jersey. And my other thing that I did, which is where we're tying in team building, is I was a consultant for many years. As my husband was the lead in our business, someone had to pay our bills, right? So anyway, I was a consultant for many years doing this type of, team building consulting. So that's where I'm also pulling my knowledge from as well. I don't do that activating wise. My family, which we do all this for, and it's one of our multifamily apartment buildings that we have multifamilies and apartment buildings, mostly on the East Coast, Southeast, and the Northeast. So that's kind of what we're up to. And who I'm here with, my other key partner, it's my husband and Andressa, my two partners. But we started the Real Estate Investor Show and community to support women in this business. And Andressa's going to take it now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I got to do your thing.
Oh, yeah, you got to do anything. No,
all right. Tell me when to click.
You are in control, Liz.
All right, I'm in control. Uh-oh.
So for those of you that have not heard of the podcast yet, I'm from Brazil. As you can tell, I have an accent. And I came to the U.S. in 2008. I went to Temple School. Liz, you can just go put all of them, and then I can.
Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
So,
like that.
Yeah, that works.
Okay,
so
cool.
I went to LaSalle for my master's degree, and during my last semester, I got an opportunity to do a training, and I started working door-to-door sales. And I'm telling you, that was one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life. However, looking back, I've learned so much that I can apply. I think I learned more doing door-to-door than my master's degree.
Yeah, I can understand.
Right?
That.
Yeah. And I learned, how the systems are important. Team building is so important. Being prepared is so important. And my number one thing that I've learned is the meaning of the word no. So I can knock in anybody's door nowadays and start a conversation. And then one day my manager said, hey, read this book here. It's about entrepreneurship, because I don't think you're going to be in sales. And then that's how my world just turned around with Rich Dad Poor Dad. So at the bottom, you can see one of my first rehabs is this all black property that was completely burned down. And that was the only picture that I was able to take it at that moment before I purchased the property. I was not able to walk through the property, it was not safe to do that. And that was the scenario. So at the bottom, you see those are also single family homes that were built from ground up. Since then, I also have a small multifamily, and I mix both long-term and short-term rental, which I really enjoy. On the side, it's me with my son. He's a little bigger now, much bigger now, right? As Liz said, we have a podcast and a community that supports women to live a financially free and balanced life. And now I am the director of real estate development for Campanella Development and Columbus Construction. Well, we focus on commercial buildings. We do residential too, but our bulk, it's commercial buildings. Now we're going to talk about our agenda, right? Because that's what really matters here. What you are going to get out of this presentation today. So one of the things that we want to talk about is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when building a team, where to gain alignment and diversity, because sometimes we tend to hire or partner up with people that are just like us. So Liz is going to talk about the importance of diversity and how can that really build your team. For the multifamily, we want to really break it down what you really need to find deals, to do the construction, and to do the management. So we're going to break down that for you. And if you have any questions throughout, send it to Dan and he's going to give it to us after. We're going to talk about the importance of construction. The team that you will need to do a successful construction does not start when the shovel hits the ground. It's prior to that. It's after that. So it's my favorite subject. So I'm going to take over that and really talk about who do you need to have and who do you need to be in order to be successful and achieve your goals. And at the end, I'm going to share with you a case study of a multifamily property that was purchased, rehabbed, refinanced, and that was one of the most successful projects that I've encountered because we pulled out 6 figures cash. We cash out 6 figures on that property, and it's cash flowing now very nicely in a great neighborhood. So I'm going to share all the nuggets there with you guys too.
Awesome. Thanks, Andressa. So, it's early here on the East Coast, so I don't know if anyone really wants an ice cream cone, but that's just sad, right? That happens a lot with my kiddos. But anyway, that's a mistake. So when it comes to forming teams, what is the biggest mistake? And if you know Andressa and I, we really like to engage with people. So it's hard, as we're doing this virtually, you could type it in the notes section, write a note on your notepad, say it out loud, whatever. But what do you think, the folks listening to this right now and on the recorded version in the future, what is the biggest mistake? Because there's a lot of them. And it's something that's it's an art. It's not a science, I don't think. So just shout it out or write it in the notes section, but take a moment and participate with what you think the biggest mistake when forming teams are. Okay. Well, some of you, I can't see what the answers are, unfortunately, but some of you might be saying, right, there's so many. When we put this together and really think through our own experiences, because that's the thing Andressa and I hopefully get out to you here today is we didn't just put a presentation together like theory, like this is nice to know information. This is all stuff we're sharing with you is stuff that we've experienced in good ways and also in challenges and all between. So yeah.
Quick. So Caroline is saying that she typed it in that
okay.
is not understanding their skills and their goals.
Okay, awesome.
Corinne is saying hiring, assembling people just like me.
Oh, I see it now. Thank you.
Yes, sure.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see that. Awesome. Okay, yeah, not understanding their skills and goals. Perfect. Hey, Carolyn. Hiring, assembling people just like, okay, perfect. Anybody else want to put it in their notes section? What's the biggest mistake when forming teams? Yeah, thank you, Andressa.
Sure.
Any other thoughts there? Okay. Well, those are
Kelly's saying bringing on teammates that think like you, it's my biggest mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, we like people like ourselves. We're going to get into that big time today, because it's just easy, right? We just like people like ourselves.
Right?
We're going to get into why we do that, but those are great. So, in addition to those great answers and great participation there, I want to put here the lack of alignment and lack of diversity. And we don't often think of this. There's areas that we need to be aligned with, and then there's areas that are critical to being diverse in. And when you have either of those things missing, that really can impact the forming of a really, when I say forming a team, forming like a Rockstar team, not just any team, right? We all could do that without coming to this presentation. Okay, so first thing we're going to get into is gaining alignment. And so where do you want to gain alignment? And there are things that are critical. Values. Like if you're not aligned with your partners on values, you should just pack it in and not partner with that person or not form that team member, because values are really critical. Examples of values, right? They could be, I always like to say delayed gratification, or having that value of doing whatever it took. Andres and I 2 weeks ago at like 8:30 in the evening to like 10:30 in the evening worked on things we needed to work on for our real estate investor, business, if you will, which is, really trying to grow. 8:30 was late for both of us. We were tired, but we were both willing to do whatever it took. She and I have very, very similar values. That's not always the case with certain team members. So that's critical. Having those goals really aligned. Like you and that team are so on the same page. So you can ask 3 different team members, what are our goals this year? They can regurgitate them and you don't get 3 different answers. That's not good. Okay. So you want to be aligned on that. Expectations, same thing. Entrepreneurial spirit. And I always put delayed gratification because you want to be aligned. If you are building something together, there's going to be all of you folks listening, whether you have multifamily buildings already or you're looking to invest, either way, we all know that real estate is not this like you get this big fat check right when you buy a property. It just doesn't work that way. So there is this lag, okay, and you want to be mindful of it. We put this together to because these conversations can be hard, not hard, but they don't just you don't just wake up and have a team together and go, let's ask some thought-provoking questions together. Like you have to really be mindful and really give thought to it. So these are just some questions we came up with here when you're trying to get to what are those shared goals and vision together. It's just, I'll read them to you, but you can kind of use these. We put this together with the goal of using this with your team. And as you're talking things through with your team. So use these questions, steal them from us, please. What do you value as a team? What vision do you have, now in 5 years? What do you want to achieve, short-term, long-term? What could we do if we couldn't fail? That's a really, really important question. And what legacy do we want to leave? We often think about what needs to be done in a company or in a project. That's just superficial stuff. That's not going to be why people stay with you on a team. Those aren't, I sweep the floors. Like that's not going to be something why someone stays with you. Or I go check on our projects because someone needs to. Well, great. But what's the legacy as a team you're trying to leave? So just a couple of thoughts there. So the second thing we also want to get into is gaining diversity. Okay. So people often think, we have to be similar in certain ways, but we don't often think of diversity, how important that is. So you can shout it out in the notes. What do you see here? And I'm going to get into why I'm showing this to you. Random pictures here in the multifamily real estate conference, but stay with us here. We do have a reason for all this. So what do you see in the top left corner? If you can put that in the chat section, that'd be great. What do you see there?
Did you draw this?
No, it looks like I did though, because you see some people might see a bunny, some people might see a duck. There you go.
Caroline.
I see a duck and a rabbit. You got it, Caroline. What do you see here? I can't chat and advance the slides. Why am I not doing? Okay, there you go. What do you see in that picture, everybody? Some people see a man's face. Some people see a mouse, but you see both. Now, you see that, Andressa?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
The mouse. I saw the guy first.
Yeah. And then this is an interesting one, but what do you see in that picture? What do you see in that picture?
I remember when you showed this once, and I had a hard time, and I still have a hard time finding it.
People see birds, they see surfers. I mean, I have heard all kinds of interesting things. Yeah.
Okay.
But often people will say is a man's face, and the man's face is Jesus's face. So if you can see it, folks, his eyes are here, his nose, his beard. And this one is really hard for people because they often don't see it. So beyond analyzing this picture and why you don't see the face of Jesus, the most important thing we want to get across here to you in this kind of slide is what you see of the world is different than everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. We know this, but when it rubber meets the road and you're working with people, it happens all the time, right? The disconnect, the miscommunications, and all that good stuff. So here's where you want to gain diversity, because you're going to be different from others. You're going to see the world differently. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you send someone an email and they get back to you and you're like, what are they even saying? Did they read my email, or did they just skip over my email? And you're like, you're not even sure where they're coming from, right? And Jess and I are very different. We think differently, right?
Yeah.
And like you and I, you'll send me back a note. I'm like, did she read my message? I don't think she read it. And then you'd probably be thinking something like wacky with me, because I'm a whack job myself. But it's so interesting, right? When you are communicating with people, you're coming from your own perspective, right? Your own little world, your own style. So here's where you want to gain diversity, especially, and we're going to get into the nitty gritty of multifamily. So don't worry, we're going there. But this is a base, and this is a base that most people forget to do. Okay. So number one, skills. Okay. Now, if you are an analytical person, okay, and you are building a team, we're going to get into that. You don't really want like 10 tons of analytical people with you, right? That's not going to work. You're going to need other skills, okay? Experience, right? Great teams have different experience bringing to the table. It's really helpful, really important. And here's the thing that most people forget. Okay, they know the skills and experience. They're not morons. They know that if they're not great at raising money, they know they need someone who can do that or is willing to do that, right? But here's where people get stopped in forming really, really amazing teams, is that they think that the behavior or the personality should be similar with their team, or they're attracted to people like that. I think someone said that in the chat section. That is literally the worst thing you can do, is to bring people on that have a similar personality style than you. And it's very easy because we are attracted to people like ourselves. So if you're at a networking group and you're like a very friendly person, you're going to go meet all the friendly people. Those aren't the people to necessarily form a team around, because you're all going to be friendly and nice and then not work out for a lot of reasons. Okay. So diversity is critical in personality. I just want to make that a point. Now, I can talk for days about this. This is the assessment that I had an expertise on for 12 years while I was helping my husband in our real estate business and doing this, really, really important consulting work I was doing back in the day. So I share this with you because I want you to think about the slide before. And as you build your multifamily team, really it's applicable to any, obviously, investing, but obviously the point of this conference is multifamily. As you build your multifamily team, I want you to think about yourself. And I really want you to make a conscious effort to not form teams with people like yourself. And sometimes you don't even know where you are. So I'm going to share with you really like a down and dirty kind of version of this, because I just don't have the time to go into it as much as I probably would like to. But I want to give you enough to go on here. So you got 4 dimensions: dominance, extroversion, patience, and formality. And I want you to think of this as like a continuum. Okay. So more of it's on the right, less of it's on the left. And I probably even shared this, in different presentations I give, just because it's a kind of a core. If you are more dominant, you're self-confident, you're self-motivated. If you're less on dominance, you're accommodating, you're cooperative. Those two people need each other, and they have different personality traits, right? The dominant people run over less dominant people. All right, think about yourself in dominance. Where are you? Okay, and watch yourself that you don't attract other people or build a team that have too many people like that. Okay, especially dominant people. You're all going to think you're all right. You're not going to be listening to each other. Okay, extroversion, and you could tell, like, Andressa, can I put you out there?
Yes, I was going to say.
Andressa is higher in dominance, all right, than me. I'm actually right on the norm with dominance. I'm actually not that dominant of a person. I can be, but I'm not normally. Like, that's not my first go-to. And she's more dominant. So we were going back on an idea, and she goes, I want to know your idea because I don't want to overpower you. It was just a really good insight, right, to be knowing what your team is and how their styles are. So let's go to extroversion. More extroverted is more of a verbal person. They like to talk things through. They're more extroverted in essence. Less extroversion. They're more thoughtful. They're analytical. They're technically oriented. They're very skeptical. They're just like, what is this stupid thing that they're showing right now? That's what someone that's an introvert listening to this right now would be thinking. But they're very thoughtful. They're very mindful, and they're extremely able to look at things more internally, where an extrovert looks at things externally. So those two styles are very important on a team. Beyond the skills and experience, that really helps, because if I'm somebody who likes to network and get out there and talk to people, I'm higher on extroversion. But we all know, to have a successful real estate investing team, you absolutely need who? Analytical people, right? People who can run numbers, who are more skeptical, who are a little more critical. That's really, really important in this real estate investing world. So that's, again, you're not going to necessarily attract those people, but you need them and they need you. Patience is all about the drive at which we move. Somebody who's more patient. And again, think of yourself on extroversion. I'm higher on extroversion. I'm over here. I'm not that high, but I'm high. Andressa, you're over here. You're low on extroversion.
Like that way.
Yeah, you're over here. So, so if we're brainstorming something together, I might just be brainstorming because that's how I process things. I could see her thinking about it. She actually probably needs to go away and think about it, where I actually really appreciate the external processing, right? So again, as you're brainstorming with a team, you're working things through. Be mindful. How does this person solve problems? Am I really giving them the best ability, a best opportunity to solve problems? And that's what you're doing in a multifamily investing or any investing. You're solving problems all the time. So again, be mindful of people's styles and really start to build diversity. Patience is all about the pace at which people move. And I know people who are impatient on this webinar this morning. It's like, get to the next point.
Can you please talk
about
So
less patience is here, right? Low patience, all right? Their sense of urgency. They want to move to the next thing. People that are more patient are more steady. They're more calm. Very good with systems and processes, actually. High patience. Impatient people will just change things and keep changing them. And they don't realize how important it is to create those processes and systems. So again, the pace at which we move and think is low patience is here. High patience is there. Again, really important and helpful. If you are someone low on patience, you will underestimate the time needed to do something and you overcommit. And if you have a whole team of people doing that, and you've taken on 5 buildings, and now you have 50 doors that you're managing and trying to turn around, and you've taken on too much for that team, that's where you're going to see it. You're going to have a bunch of people who are kind of like, in essence, low on patience. So again, where are you? Where's your team? Formality is also the last one here. That's all about the sense of being more like conscientious on the right here versus somebody who's kind of uninhibited and casual. I can tell you, your risk takers, okay, again, really, really important quality to have on a multifamily team or any investing team, is that you have a mix of cautious people and risk takers. If you're all cautious, you will talk about doing a multifamily deal, and then next year, you'll keep talking about doing a multifamily deal, and then next year, you'll keep talking about doing a multifamily deal.
Get ready.
I went to I spoke at a meetup the other night, and there's a guy there, and I know this stuff, and he's like, yeah, I just bought a building, and thought I'd figure it out, and it's not working out the way I thought it would. I'm like, risk taker, So again, where are you on risk? And formality, if you're low on formality, you're uninhibited, you're blunt, you kind of wing it in your life, you're more probably of a risk taker. If you're more cautious and careful, and you don't like to do things until you know what they are, you're probably more cautious, you're probably more careful and more risk adverse. So again, know who you are. Bottom line, know who you are. Take a great assessment out there. This is obviously a wonderful one because I've used it, but there's so many great ones out there. Just take one that costs money and have your team take it and get into a discussion to make sure that skills and experience are being aligned. Okay. So,
just one thing. And also when you guys are hiring people, and I learned this from Liz, when you are hiring them, ask them to take the test online so you know what type of personality that person has, because they're not going to write their personality traits on their resume for you, and probably they're not even thinking about it. So that's very important to know when you're building a team or hiring somebody, for them to take it. It's just extra information for you to make a final decision.
Absolutely. And you just want to be cognizant. I mean, I worked with a lot of human resource folks in the corporate world. If you do that, you want to be very, very careful to make sure you're doing it in the right kind of, way. So you're not, kind of winging it and stuff, because that can kind of get into those pieces of hiring. But regardless, Andressa, you're right on. That's how people would use tools like this when I was working with small teams, large teams. So the key here, the bottom line is, no matter where you are on those 4 dimensions, be amazing at adapting to other people. Like, know yourself and get those needs met, but you have to adapt. Andressa adapts to me. When I start rambling about things, she really is pretty efficient, and she doesn't process things that way, but she adapts. She's like, okay, she gives me time and energy to do that. Right, Andressa?
Yeah.
And vice versa. And that's how we work well together. You have to adapt, and with giving yourself those needs. So we want to transition here. Who do you need on your team? And I want to go back to that stuff as we continue, but who do you need on your team? And then we're going to kind of get into one key role, and then Andressa is going to jump into some construction. So general team members for this is really coming from the context of multifamily, right? You could probably build this on wholesaling and all the different areas of people getting involved in investing. This is the lens of multifamily. Obviously, finding deals, that is a focus, right? You want to find people, and we just threw some out there, like commercial agents, wholesalers. There's probably more, but you need to have people on your team that find deals. Obviously, purchasing deals. We don't realize how much energy and time goes into actually getting to closing. You could be like, the offer is accepted, and there's so much to be done between that offer being accepted and getting to closing, right, Andressa?
Oh, 100%.
And there's probably so many loops. There's so many loops. There's so many people more than what we've listed here. But regardless, we were just kind of giving, some idea that is a key team member area that you need to think through. Who where am I, and who do I need? Managing deals, having local feet on the street, having that general contractor. We're going to get into construction, property management. A lot of people are not investing in their 30-minute radius. They're investing in other areas. Property management becomes even more important if you can't physically be at the building in 30 minutes or whatever your time frame is, right? Having that local presence, that's critical to managing the deal, okay? So if you could think about your own multifamily experience right now, think about these 3 buckets. Where's it lacking for you? Oh, I'm really good with finding deals, but whenever we get to closing, it just something kind of gets a little, that doesn't seem to be streamlined. Or vice versa, managing, we're really good with the managing, but we just can't, there's not enough deals in our pipeline. There's a lot of competition out there, whatever you say to yourself. So think about these 3 and maybe adding some team members. Then we go to core team members. And this is where I'll start to share this with you and then transition to Andressa here in a moment. This is something we've found, especially when it comes to multifamily, to be your core team members. These folks here, the ones that are here, they're important, right? A commercial real estate agent is really important. A broker, they're critical, and especially as you get into larger multifamily, it's critical. They're critical people. However, they're not core team members, right? When I say core, this is like the people you're doing your visioning with. These are the people you're doing goal setting with. These are the people you're having your weekly calls with. Like, this is driving your business to what? Results, okay? So the first one, and we're going to give you 4. And we put this together and created this just in our own experience. So the hunter, obviously they're doing what? They're hunting. So if you think about it from a multifamily perspective, I'm going to just explain this and we'll go through a little bit of where you fall. These people are tenacious, right? That's a quality of theirs. Do you think they are naturally going to be someone who likes, no? They're going to plow through no. They're going to love no because they know they're getting to a yes. So these are tenacious people who move through no's, who are very aggressive at trying to be that initial seed to get deals in the hopper. Okay. They're the ones that are really out there talking to the brokers and doing whatever it takes to uncover multifamily deals, which all of us know how important that is in today's economy, right? They're not just flying on my lap right now, right? That you have to work a little harder. You got to have different strategies in place. So this is the hunter. If you think about personality traits, is this going to be somebody who's quiet or docile? No way. That's not going to be a good hunter, right? They're going to have to be a little more aggressive. Now you got the brains. Now, this is not the only person who has the brains in all this, but this is somebody who, what they bring to the table, and especially in multifamily, is that these are the folks that kind of take all the opportunity. And the hunter says, I got a great deal, basis our market, basis what we're looking for, our cash on cash and return, and all that good stuff of whatever criteria meets your investing criteria, your team's criteria. The brains ends up putting it into, in essence, their screening tools. So that can mean underwriting the deal. That can mean, okay, now we got to make sure, what's the market rent in that particular area? All the economy, the market, everything that is critical to assessing, are we making an offer on this project or not? In essence, the brain's just kind of crunching all those numbers. So if you have somebody who's a really big, larger than life, likes to network and present and do this and do that, are they necessarily going to be the person who's super analytical? Now, they could be all these things. As you get going in your business, you're all of these things, which I get to the last two. But as you build a team, you have to start to think about, what am I a genius at? Like, what can I do better than anyone else? That's what you need to start to think about as you build a team. You can't do it all. And if you're doing it all, you got to stop and start to build teams. Third one is the money. We all know that multifamily investing takes money, someone's money. Okay. So if it's not your money, it's someone's money. And if you're raising money, that's a whole other business, right? And so these are the folks that are the relationship person, right? They have the relationships. They are maybe like a thought leader. They're the forefront of the organization. They are building the relationships so people trust and like them. And therefore they're building their investor pool, right? Some people are doing this syndication. Some people are doing this on a small equity deal. And I mean, both versions, a single family to a 200 unit apartment building. You still need money. And there needs to be someone who's kind of at the forefront of that, especially as you get into larger deals where you're not going to be able to just use your own money. The last one, got Thor there. I gotta put a picture on Jessa of a woman there. But anyway, we got like Thor, but the hammer doesn't necessarily need to be like that big of a hammer, but the hammer is really critical. So you got the hunter who finds the deal. You got the brains is crunching the numbers, making sure it's meeting that criteria, the analytical. The money is like, we're going to fund this thing conventionally, private money, all that good stuff. They're putting the money together, so to speak. The hammer is then, okay, the deal is closed. Okay, now
what?
Then what? Holy crap, we got to do something now. But here's the thing. The hammer is so critical. And when I say the hammer, it's really managing usually the value add opportunity. Because like many of us, I don't know about the folks listening to this, but I'm just going to speak personally, and Andressa, you too, we know this market, and regardless of where you are in the United States or even the world, really good deals are going to probably be value add deals. So on some level, it's a value add deal. Like so many people, like, what kind of multifamily are you looking for? I'm looking for a value add. Who isn't? Who isn't? We all know that that's part of the recipe of a successful deal, right? You're going to go in, add value, make it, make sure your P&L is going to look even better in 6 months to a year. And then you're going to refinance and pay back your investors and all that good stuff that we know of implementing your strong business plan. But here's the thing. None of that works. Even if you have the money, none of it works if you have somebody who's amazing at running the numbers and that they found the deal. The hammer is really going to implement the plan and make sure that it's the construction and the value add is happening on time and on or under budget. Okay. So as we transition to this, I'm going to give the floor to Andressa. I want you to think about yourself. All right. Where do you fit in? Because honestly, if you take nothing else of this presentation, hopefully you'll take some really good nuggets, because that's what Andressa and our intent was, to spend this time with all of you and hopefully give you some value and just share some of our experience. You fit somewhere, okay? Or you have the makings to fit somewhere. If you are in multifamily already and you're listening to this webinar, you fit somewhere. And you might be someone who actually does 3 of these really well. I would actually invite you to think about, what do I do at a genius level? And how do I build a team to get other geniuses with me? Because that's where you're going to build a rockstar team. Because you could do some of these pretty well, but you don't want to do them pretty well. You actually want to have that genius level, quite honestly. That's where any amazing team does. That's what they do. So are you the hunter? Are you the brains? Are you that, the hammer, or are you the money person? Where do you fall? especially in multifamily investing. So, and think about all those things: self-awareness, personal inventory. Take as many of those assessments online you can. I mean, if you're at the beginning stages of this, I would overanalyze yourself, because you want to know, what do you bring to the table and what do you lack? Because we all can't be great at all of this. There's no way we can be great at this.
No, not at all.
And more importantly, when you're a solo person in this game, and I'm going to give the floor to Andressa, when you're a solo person, and I can speak from experience, you do everything okay, and it stifles your growth.
Yeah.
When you go to the next level and you say, I really want to get into, okay, I got a 10 unit, I really want to get into a little bit of a larger multifamily, or whatever your goals are. When you try to get to that next level, you start to realize, I got to build with other people. Like that's how people are doing it. So again, my invitation is to you: where do you fall? What are you genius at? And then how do you really build with other people? Basis, skills, experience, and personality differences. So as we get into the hammer, and Andressa gets into the next piece here, we wanted to focus in on the hammer and the construction, because so many of these multifamily deals are value add. They're not just these beautiful properties that are, you don't have to do anything and you're going to make all this return. That's just not, at least my world or Andressa's world. So we wanted to give you some tips and strategies, especially as you're becoming more successful as the hammer, or you're looking to build with someone on your team that's the hammer. So without further ado, go for it, Andressa.
So two things that I want to address. So if you're having a hard time figuring out what you're a genius at, I would recommend you to really interview people around you that you really like, trust, and want to do business with. Mm-hmm. And you ask them, what do you think? Explain the 4 trades for them, and ask, what do you think I really do well? And it's not really a debate. I want you to guys just listen to what they are saying and take it. Say, I don't think that, or whatever that is. Listen, and you're going to see that there's a common line among all the people that you're interviewing. And that's probably what you do best. And I want to address Dusty. Thanks for sending your question, Dusty. So he's asking, what books, websites would you recommend to become more aware of your strengths and lackings list?
Okay,
what
sure.
would you recommend?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. There's a few that are really good. Strengths Finder, it's a book. And usually in the book, they give you a code to take the assessment called the Strengths Finder. So I would definitely go to Strengths Finder. It's a really wonderful assessment. Colby is another one, Kolbe, Colby Index. Wonderful resource. It's also, I think the woman's name is Kathy Colby, but regardless, if you Google Colby, Kolbe, great assessment as well. I'm pretty sure with the predictive index, I mean, I'm biased because I use it forever. I'm pretty sure if you go on their website, Predictive Index, I think it's just predictiveindex.com, there's a way to get a free sample. Again, highly recommend that. A lot of people like DISC, D-I-S-C, okay, which is also a very good one. Myers-Briggs is also a good one. But I would go through, you really want to look at these tools like, how do I relate this to my life? And then what can I do with it? But those are a few to start with. And there's 16PF is another one. 16P is in Paul, F is in Frank. So those are just a few off the top of my head.
All right. So let's get started with the construction part. And as Liz said, why we're talking about construction now, because I hear a lot of people talking about acquisition, how to find the deals, how to get this deal closed. But then after that, the implementation of the add-on value, that is very critical to get the deal done, critical to get back to your investors and really perform what the plan was and grow your business. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. We're going to focus on the construction part.
Good.
All right. So let me just move our screen here to the side. So in construction, when you're building your team, one of the most important things that you've got to do is to vet people. And I am dead serious when I'm talking to you about that. It doesn't matter if it is a general contractor, if it is a lender. I am vetting them. Even though I'm borrowing from a private lender, from a bank, my mentality is I am vetting them, and vice versa. But I don't want to go there with the mentality that I'm asking for money. I am offering an opportunity. Local banks, they do need to invest in their local communities. It's just part of their policies and goals. So I have that in my mind. And when I'm talking to them, I am trying to get what are their, sweet spot. Are they talking about cap rate? What is ideal for them? And then I match the properties. Specifically for contractors, guys, I always say this, I meet them at their job site. And here's the reason for it. Of course, I will meet the person and walk through all the units. That's a for sure thing, but that's a second phase. My first phase is to meet them at their job site, because I'm going to see a lot of good things and bad things, such as, did he arrive on time? Or I was there waiting for him. Probably that's gonna happen in the future. And don't get me wrong, traffic happens, things happen. But what I'm looking for is he or she is communicating with me and giving me a heads up. Hey, I am running late 10 minutes, 15 minutes. This X, Y, and Z happened. That's what I'm actually looking for. If he or she is communicating upfront with me when something happened, because communication throughout this process is essential. From you to your team members, from you to the people that you hire, the contractors, the subs, any sub, and also the private lenders and any other lenders. So communication throughout is just high priority. Mm-hmm. Number 2, must have documents. When, I'm all about, following through with your word. What you say is what you do. And when that doesn't happen, we have a problem. But have all the documents before things start. And I heard a lot of people talking about that they start a project without having a signed contract in place. And guess what? I learned from my own mistakes. So that's what I'm sharing with you guys. So what I'm referring specifically here is my non-negotiable 3 exhibits or addendum that I add to my contract, which are scope of of a detailed scope of work. If I need to replace the roof, that's a big item. If you're talking about an apartment complex, we are talking 6 figures, right? It really depends on how many, square feet do you have, but I need to be very specific about what do I need to be done. It is a repair, it is a replacement, it is a tear down and build all over again. So that's very, very specific. And why do I ask for that? When sometimes you are hiring contractors and you get a price here, the other one is right here, the other one is somewhere else, and you're like, why did that happen? So that happened because a couple of things, but one of them, it's because the scope of work they thought they need to be done, it's different. So when you offer them the same scope of work, the same finishes list, and the same payment plan at the end, there's no confusion. You are comparing apples to apples. And then if there is a high discrepancy, it's either something that I did wrong or they did wrong. And it's not a problem. We just need to adjust what that is. Why do you have this many sheets for drywall? It doesn't make too much sense. Was a typo or not? And that's where you find some tune there. For the finishes list, this is what I'm referring to. I want to use this faucet that I usually get at Lowe's, Home Depot, my local supplier. Here's the link. Here's the information. So they all know what type of finishes are you looking for. If it is a builder's grade, but if you have a multifamily in a very nice area that needs quartz or granite countertop, so that's different. And you want to make sure that they do have this, upfront before they bid on the project. One more thing about the finishes, though. Some people say, oh my gosh, it's so many, right? So many finishes. Yeah, it is. But you can build that very easily on an Excel spreadsheet, and you will build that once and adjust as you go. And believe me, that's going to save you a lot of times. So for you guys, if you have any questions while I'm talking about all of this, please put on the chat and I will do my best to respond. If I am going too quick or you know, if something is not clear to you, I want to make sure that you get your answers, your questions answered. So the payment plan, that is such a essential document to have. Okay, you vet them, you met them at their job site, you walked through your property, you gave them everything, you received a bid from it, great. Now, probably on his bid, he's suggesting how the payment plan is going to be. Some people request 25% upfront, others break down in 3, whatever that might be. I don't really care how much they're asking, because I want to make sure that independently, if I am having a bank in the deal, if I have private lenders on the deal, if it is a cash deal, if it is my own money or whoever money is, I don't care. My process for payment plan is the same. And let me explain to you what it is. The deposit will really reflect what they need to do on the first phase. What do I mean by that? Let's say I have a building that is a shell. So there's no demolition to be done. We can get started. That will be different than if I have a building that I need to demo. So my first deposit is going to be all related to demolition and cleanup part. So there's no like a specific rule or percentage. I always base my deposit, of course, on the length of the project, the price of the project, and most important, what's happening on the first phase. And why? Because that person, after deposit, that person is going to get paid once the phases are 100% complete. So at the end, I can share with you our templates. You can send us an email either to me or Liz. I can share on the chat box, and I will share with you a real payment plan that I did before. So you see it, that it's very clear what needs to be completed for that check to be written down. So you're not gonna get calls saying, yeah, I'm like halfway through my installation. Can I get paid for that? Well, what does the payment plan calls for? And hear me out. We're in this business and we want to build relationships, and we understand that sometimes we need to be flexible on this. My payment plan fluctuates throughout, but I do have a guide. I have something that I can look at. Sometimes one thing needs to go to another phase just because of time frame, weather condition, or depending on the city of Philadelphia here. So permits and different permissions, inspections might delay. So your payment plan, you can be flexible to that, but you cannot be flexible on paying ahead. Meaning, if I have to hire this person, can I get a second or third GC to complete the job, or this person is ahead of the game, is gonna walk away and still have things to be done? And believe me, if you pay ahead of the game, there's no incentive for them to follow the schedule and finish up the job, unless a moral commitment, absolutely, but there's no incentive for them to do that. Scheduling, oh my gosh, I cannot even emphasize this much. Same thing as payment plan, the scheduling, it's a guideline, right? We want to make sure we have that as a guideline, and things happen again. So your schedule moves around, but you want to make sure that the general contractor and any subs that you are hiring understand if they're ahead of the game, if they're behind. Because sometimes they work this weekend and say, yeah, we are completing things. That's fine, but what can we do here in order to catch up those 2 weeks that we didn't we're supposed to be way ahead. And the schedule is something that you do with your contractor. He or she should be very aware of how long things happen. You can, with your experience, you will get to the point where you will put a schedule in a heartbeat, and then you go to the general contractor, share with him or her, and all of this is going to be attached to your contract. So I need his or her signature there, confirming that this is what we are committed to. Of course, flexibility, but that's where we are. Our target is very clear. All right, let's go to the next one. So the construction management part, right? We got to the closing table and we're looking to add value to the property. So you got to have both options here. Either a construction manager or you self-manage. For those of you guys that have out of state, it's very difficult to self-manage and make sure that what is really being done, what was committed is what really is being done. So you gotta have somebody there to either confirm this or hire somebody to really take over everything. My biggest thing here is that sometimes we tend to say, oh, I'm just gonna do this so I can save money. Absolutely, if you have experience and skills and can see ahead of the game, the construction game, absolutely. But if you don't understand how to plan, this is actually going to cost you more, because the job for the construction manager job is to figure out 2 weeks ahead, not what's happening on Monday. You're always planning what's going on 2 weeks ahead. If I need to review the drawings for the kitchen cabinets, for example, make sure that that's order. All the windows, if it is black vinyl, it takes a little bit longer than it's white, right? And there's certain things that you just learn as you go. So be mindful of it, because time is also cost money. Remember, you're carrying costs. Majority of the deals, we are borrowing money for other people. So if it takes a week longer, 2 weeks longer, 4 months longer than what expected, what is the commitment here? And when you have a CM in place, in my opinion, is on him and on her. So I need to communicate with 1 people instead of 4 or 5. And if it is my trade to find another deal, that's what I'm going to do. So when you are hiring somebody, please make sure they do have a background in terms of experience in managing several things at the same time, or out of state, and they're organized. Look at the skills that Liz mentioned before, the personality traits, and make sure that that person fits that. You need somebody very organized that can manage and hold a lot of stress and a lot of things moving, right? So make sure that person has those traits. Expectations, clear communication, online reports, stats, and updates. I couldn't emphasize this more. For private lenders, I always do a weekly report, or sometimes for larger deals, as I know that Liz does, quarterly or a monthly newsletter. Here's the point. They want to be on the loop. And you say, some people might say, well, but how about when there are issues and there's no progress? They want to know that too. It's just as simple. We're still dealing with X, Y, and Z. This is our plan to resolve it. And I will keep you posted. Next week or next month, we're still dealing with this. We have found X, Y, and Z, and this is how we're handling it. We expect it to be done by X, Y, and Z. It's just keeping them on the loop. That's all what they need to they want to know. They want to know if there is an issue. They don't expect, folks, that everything is going to go smooth, right? I haven't seen that yet. So be mindful that it's just part of the game, okay? Organization, standard operating procedures. When you are scaling your business, it really doesn't matter if you have small multis or apartment complexes. If you don't have standard operating procedures in place, it's basically impossible to share with your team members how you want things to be done and what are your standards, how fast, how the language that you want to do it, who needs to be copied on this email. who does not need to be copied on this email. So all of this, in my opinion, needs to be created prior of you scaling it. And believe me, if you do have already a team, but you don't have SOPs, that's time for you to get started. And this is a completely another webinar talking about SOPs. It's very fun for me to talk about them, but they're crucial. And sometimes it's not fun to create them, but they are crucial to the growth of your business. And feedback. I always say that when a deal is done, the construction is done, it's actually not done. I always ask for feedback for the people that I work with, the contractor. And honestly, I'm looking to understand their perspective as well. What worked for you? What didn't work? What can we do better in the future to facilitate your job? And I ask the same question to everybody. For private lenders, you want to understand and really open the communication to them. Say to them, it's not gonna hurt me. I really need the honest feedback from you about what worked, what didn't work, and how can I do better in the future. You want to do that. And don't take it in anything personal. It's just clearly intentional. You're gonna understand what is working so you can repeat and what is not working so you can adjust. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to our case study. So this is a property that we purchased in, I think, 2017 here in South Philadelphia. So the bottom was a candy store in 1950s, and believe me, there were some stuff inside since then. It was an Italian family that was living on the second and third floor. Zoning wise, the bottom was commercial, and at the top was zoned at two apartments, 2 units. So how did we started the transition it? This is a residential area, so commercial does no longer make sense here. So we hire a zoning attorney to start the process prior of closing. This is a very important thing. We understand that zoning process and zoning change take longer. It really does. It is just sometimes out of your hand. You can do whatever you can do to get to the community and the zoning board, but after that is just like, what can you do? One thing that we did, and I just want to make sure I emphasize this right now, it doesn't apply to everybody. We were extremely confident that we were going to close on this deal. So we started the zoning process prior with the authorization, of course, of the owner. So we had attorney fees and all the other fees that goes around it. So we were able to shave about 2 to 3 months during this process. So when we closed on the property, we were good to go on that, because my finance will look completely different if it is a mixed use or if it is a residential. It's completely different. So it does make a lot of sense for us to really get finance with the use that we want to do, which was 3 units over here. The architect, since this was being used as a single family upstairs, as a single like unit upstairs, was all mixed up. At the bottom was a candy store. We had to do 100% completely new drawings, new layout. So a great architect that can really understand. And when he submitted the drawings, it doesn't go a lot of, back and forth. So you want a local architect that really understands the city, the rules and everything else, so that can be arranged. The engineer, we dig down and finish the basement. So you gotta have inspections. You wanna make sure the structure is sounded and everything is done as properly. The 4th team member was a GC. We fired GC number 1 because GC number 1 couldn't read a couple of the drawings. This was a very specific project, and we have found in the middle that he could not read the drawings much, therefore he couldn't execute. So it's like, uh-oh, this is no good. So we went part ways and had to hire a second GC. And then the second GC, it's always fun to remember. The second GC, he wanted his final payment. However, there were still items on the punch list to be done, right? And on my contract, it says once final punch list is done, everything is performed, you're gonna get your check. But he wanted the check prior for X, Y, and Z reasons, which doesn't really matter. So what he did, he put a lien on the property. And guess what? I cannot refinance with a lien on the property. So I had to hire a real estate attorney that had to communicate with his attorney to get into an agreement regarding that. So we had to put the fund. We didn't pay him. We put it in escrow. And once the punch list was done, then he got paid. But that's how it goes. And then we had to have a new lender, right? We used regular local lender, and then we had to have a different lender for the refi. And I'm gonna break down the numbers for you guys now. So just a couple of, no, go back one slide list. Yes, this. So this you can see inside. This is the basement actually, and then that's the first floor that we had to rip apart because it was completely damaged. So that's the type of project that it was, completely full gut. So if you look back, this is the kitchen that is more or less in the middle of this room right now. That's the very standard for this area here. People like this type of rentals. And I'm gonna go with the numbers now.
Yep.
Great.
Oh.
Oh.
Too quick.
Too quick. All right. So this property we purchased for $230,000. The construction with all the plus, the minuses, and everything else was $200K. We refined at $675K. We cash out $115. I'm gonna pause here and talk about the refi, okay? So when we run all the numbers, when we purchase the property at the first place, we always run the comparables as if, okay, if we rehab, we sell this property or we hold this property, how much the ARV will be now. And then if there is appreciation in this area, there's a cherry on top. But I wanna know how much is my ARV. And I was aiming for about 650. That was my main goal. And then we had an appraiser coming over after everything was done and the properties were, the units got rented out. And he came back at 575. I almost had like a mini heart attack at the beginning. And then I was like, okay, let's go in analytical mode right now. I did this before and I'm gonna do this again. And I'm gonna explain to you guys what I have done. So this is a strategy that, again, it comes down to communication and building rapport with your lender, okay? I communicated with the lender, say, hey, I did my own report here and I looked at his or her report and found a couple of things. Would you mind taking a look? I communicate that with the appraiser because what happened is the guys were from Pittsburgh and they came to Philadelphia. And if you're not local in the market, this is a very dense market. If you cross Broad Street on the east side or west side, it's completely different ball game. We're talking less than a mile radius here. So that's what the guy did, and that's why his comps were completely off on that. So I proposed that he could take a look again to my report. And again, he can say, nope, I will stand by what I think it is. And then I got to deal with the lender. Either I go for it or say, no, I'm not going to close on it. I'm going to go with somebody else. And, you know, this is what it is. I'll lose the money that I pay so far. But in this case, and on 2 other cases, they did accept my report. And it was even better. He came up at 675. So there is this possibility out there that if you get an appraiser, that you have some loopholes on his report, you gotta go there and you can totally create a different report and get that, you know, that appraise increase. And again, it's legit. We're not manipulating anything, but I know my market as a palm of my hand. So I could really easily see where he thought that we were in a different neighborhood. He called South Philly a neighborhood as a whole. So that was started right there. It was something. So right now we have a monthly income of 4850, and it's a mix of long-term and short-term, and that's what I really like. Two of the units are long-term and one unit is short-term. So the first 2 years, we're building that. It's cash flowing very well, but the longer it stays on the market for Airbnb, it's just cherry on top.
Okay.
Then,
okay.
All right. So guys, we're almost done with it. So for ongoing activities moving forward, guys, continually work on the relationship, not in it. Really take time to build to know that person in order for you to understand what is his or her personality traits and how can you guys communicate better. This is constant. I know this very well, but I'm constantly like thinking, how can we communicate better and improve on that? Scheduling monthly meetings, and that's on the calendar. If you take my calendar or list calendar, our monthly strategic meetings are scheduled. Her meeting with Matt was yesterday because they look at where are they at with their year, right? So quarterly, either if you cannot do face-to-face, which will be ideal because we get a lot of things accomplished face-to-face, Zoom or Skype is so much valuable. And in case you cannot do physical, and really your goal to maintain a strong communication, that's the main thing. Really, like when conflicts happen, and it comes down to really seeking to understand the other person.
And I just want to say one quick thing about the Zoom and Skype. I think people get so busy, but when it comes to forming a team, I just want to mention too, like that's just it's not a nice thing to do that. It's like actually critical, because when you cut down on the body language, and all you're doing is it's verbal. You're talking to someone on a call and you're not able to see them. You're literally taking most of communication out of the equation. So the opportunity for miscommunication, the opportunity for just like a disconnect is greater when you decrease visual. So I can't recommend that enough, to have a visual component of your communication, especially with your core team members. For everybody, but ideally your core team members. Andres and I never, even if we can't physically be there together, we always, second best is Zoom. We rarely, unless it's a quick thing we have to tell each other.
Yes or no.
Yes or no, but that's very mindful, because I'm telling you, miscommunication will happen when you cut that down. So I just want to, it's not like a nice thing. It's honestly critical in our day and age. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yes, and also for the folks that are from other countries and speak different languages as I do, you might have a upbringing that the meaning of like being quiet or not speaking or speaking too much might differ. So you really need to be taking consideration all of that. And sometimes when I communicate by email, I am very like straightforward with that, and that might come across completely different than if I was speaking what I was referring to. So be mindful of text, email, phone calls, and face-to-face. It goes like, if it is more than a sentence, it shouldn't be on a text message. If it is more than 2 sentences, call. And if it is a paragraph back and forth, you gotta meet in person. Text for me is just like yes, no, maybe, let's hop on a call, or confirming things. So always be networking to build your team. Couldn't emphasize that more. Really intentional networking, not just going there and showing up. Quarterly and yearly retreats to focus on the business, not just in it. And when we say retreats, for you to get out of your environment so your creativity goes up. Liz and I, sometimes we meet at coffee shops or somewhere else where we can really like brainstorm. And I feel that our creativity goes through the roof when we do that.
Yeah.
All right. So a free gift for you guys. As I mentioned to you, one of our critical things, sometimes we hear this story over and over again that, oh, my contractor just walked away with X $1,000 on his pocket. So if you send me an email, I will share with you a construction payment plan template, a real one that I used before, and I think will be very helpful for you guys moving forward. And as we mentioned before, we have the Real Estate Investor Show, which is a podcast where we interview women, successful women around the world that they have a successful journey in building a real estate business, and we want to pick their brain to understand how they also live a balanced life. Have a quick, and then we're gonna open up for questions now. If you guys have any questions for us, we also have a Facebook community, the Real Estate Investor. Join us and really share what are your needs, and we're more than happy to help you guys out.
Thank you guys so much for all the content you provided here. And there were a couple of questions that came through. I'm not sure, were you guys able to answer some of those questions along the way? I know you guys were kind of monitoring the chat box too.
Yeah, so let me see if we missed anything.
There was one on here about, let's see, it was about the PowerPoint slides. Were you guys going to be able to provide those so people can have access to those?
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely share that.
How do we do that, Dan?
Just email the slides to Stacy at Multifamily Investor Nation, which you guys should already have on that.
Yeah.
And she'll make sure it's actually attached to the recording so that anybody who wants those can just download them.
Yep, we'll do that. No problem. Happy to do it.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dustin says, love your podcast. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
any other questions, thoughts? Happy to help.
If you have any questions for Liz and Andressa, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A box right now, and they'll be glad to take as much time as necessary. We have about 4 or 5 minutes left here in this particular segment. So if you have any questions, please feel free to add those in there. For those of you who are watching and found really good value on this thing, go ahead and just find that chat box and just say, loved it, yes, yes, yes. I always like to have that interaction. I know most of you on here are attending a lot of these different sessions and kind of bouncing between the different segments. So sometimes don't get to watch the whole session or whatever, but thankfully we are recording this thing. So
that's great.
All of these sessions.
One thing that I wanted to mention too, that for those folks that already have a team in place and now you're like thinking through and everything else, and you got to go also with your gut in a couple of things, because if you feel that it's not a right fit and you got a lot of red flags. I remember at the beginning where I did not fire the GC fast enough, and that's the business. If he doesn't fit your criteria and he's not or she's not following through with what was committed, moving forward is just the best thing that you can do for your own business and for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Looks like, hold on one second here. Looks like you guys had a lot of great content. I was sitting here watching it the whole time, and I even learned a few things. That's always awesome. And I know sometimes people look at all the content that you're sharing and they go, man, this is a lot of work. And, it is a lot of work, but it's that's why you have to have, systems in place and a process in place, which is what you guys have shown here. And it makes life a lot easier when you can really kind of streamline things and make sure everybody on your team is also on the same page as well.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure Dan, you're talking about this in a lot of your sessions, like scaling, right? So if you have small multis and you want to get to that like larger multi, you really can't do it all yourself. You if you do, it's just tough. You cannot be great at all 4 of those roles, especially construction. If you're raising money and you're amazing at relationships, I don't know. Call me crazy, but you're probably not as good at managing construction. 2 different skill sets. It's 2 different personalities. So that's really where we're, trying to encourage everybody, because we've kind of lived it.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Well, for those of you who are watching, continue to follow these 2, because they're definitely making some waves in this space of real estate. There's the podcast right there, the Real Estate Investor Show. Go to iTunes, subscribe to it. If you're on Android, it's all over the Android apps that you have there as well. So subscribe to it, continue to follow them. Thank you too for joining us this morning, and looking forward to continue to follow you too.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having us. You're doing such great stuff with this virtual conference and summit. Absolutely. So thanks for having us. We're excited to participate again on this one. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. So thank you guys so much for being here with us again. We are closing out that last session there. We're going to be taking a quick 15-minute break. And one thing I would like